Thank God for this day, and again we congratulate our graduates. Amen. As we thank God for them and continue to pray their strength and God's direction upon them in their future endeavors.
That's it.
And you're going to need to get all that you can get in these days and times. You will need to further your education. And we certainly thank God for you. And all of you. Thank God for all of you. In a recent survey of 18 to 25-year-olds, 81% desired to be rich, 51% to become famous, 30% said they wanted to help people who need help, 22% said they wanted to become leaders in their communities, and 10% desire to become more spiritual. There's something inside of us that hungers, that wants to be great. And so I thought this morning we would share what Jesus talks about as it relates to be great.
Share with us.
In Mark chapter 10, verses 35 through 45, there is an occasion in the life and ministry of Christ dealing with his disciples on this matter. And I want to talk about, so you want to be great.
Talk about it, brother.
So you want to be great. English Standard Version renders the passage. And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him and said to him, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask.
Whatever we ask.
And he said to them, what do you want me to do for you? And they said to him, grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory. Jesus said to them, you do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink? Or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized? They said to him, we are able. And Jesus said to them, the cup that I drink you will drink, and the baptism with which I am baptized, you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those whom it has been prepared. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. Jesus called them to him and said to them, you know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for me. Thus ends the reading. Let's talk about it. So you want to be great. So you want to be great. Noted theologian Calvin Miller, upon graduating, walks across the stage, gives his hand to the president, who pulls him to himself and says to him, Calvin, I have no qualms that you will one day be great. But my question is, who will you be? I know that you're going to make it. I know that you're going to arrive. But when you get where you're going, who will you be? That question is something that all of us need to think about. If we want to be great, if we desire, if we hunger after acclimates, and we want to make it to be successful in life, but what price are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to give up to get where you're trying to go? In 1970, a poet once wrote, all I ask of life is a constant and exaggerated sense of my own importance. It suggests to us that he was on an ego trip. But those of us who follow Christ take that same statement and transform it and say, all I ask of life is a constant and exaggerated sense of the importance of trusting the Lord and putting others before myself. And the real truth is, only those who fully trust in the Lord can make such a claim. Before us there lays two schools of thought for how we can choose to live our lives. We have two diametrically opposed ways for which we can choose to lead our lives.
All right.
We can serve self for self's sake, or we can serve God and others for the sake of Christ. That's really the only two choices that we have. We can live our lives to please ourselves and do all that we can to can all we get and sit on the can. Or we can choose to give our lives away in service to the Master, knowing that he will reward us for our service. John Wooden said, talent is God-given, be humble. Fame is man-given, be grateful.
Yes, sir.
But conceit is self-given, be careful. In this text, the sons of Zebedee, Jesus has nicknamed them as sons of thunder, and they are a part of the inner circle of the immediate disciples. And if church tradition is true, they may have been literally cousins of Jesus. But whatever the case, they were not satisfied with what they had. They were eyeing seats of prominence, seats of authority. They wanted to sit one on his right and one on his left when he came into his glory. And so they come to Jesus with the proposition. Matthew adds that even their mother got involved, his aunt, and she says to Jesus, why don't you do something for my boy?
Why don't you?
When you get into your kingdom, let one sit on your right. I don't care who's which is where, but one on your right and one on your left when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus takes that initial discussion and then the discussion of the other 10 when they chime in, and he uses it as a launching pad to raise this discussion about greatness.
All right.
Because I don't want you to waste your life. I don't want you to wake up one day and find out that glory on this side is fleeting. You need something that's more permanent. And that's a relationship with Jesus Christ.
All right.
And so he uses this opportunity to teach them and to talk with them and I think he talks with us. And the first thing I see is that the illusion of greatness.
All right.
That greatness in and of itself distorts the senses and causes many to think more of themselves than they ought to think. So that throughout history, men and women have so been obsessed with this idea of greatness that they added it to their names. And over again, you can hear of Herod the Great, Alexander the Great, and the great this and the great that, and they just want to be what they aren't. And so they suffer from this illusion, and they miss all of the weaknesses and the blind spots within their lives. They think that they are invincible and powerful and more righteous than what they really are. And all I'm trying to tell us this morning is that we ought not let our senses be distorted, hungering for gratefulness or for greatness.
Yes, sir.
That we ought to just trust God where we are.
Right where we are.
And watch God lift us to where he wants us to be. We suffer from the illusion of greatness. Hungering. They come to him and they say, when you get into your glory, when you come into your kingdom, grant that one sit on your left and right. They did him like we do our parents. Just say yes. I'll tell you what I want next. But just say, anybody ever tried that? Doesn't work out too well. Just say yes. Yes to what? No, just say yes. And then I'll tell you what I want. They come to Jesus and literally they tell him they're suffering from an illusion. Literally they tell him, just say yes. And he says, what do you want me to do? To which they respond, let us sit on your right and on your left in positions of prominence. And Jesus responds to them by saying, you really don't know what you're asking.
Yes, sir.
They have an illusion, and that illusion leads them secondly to the confusion. The confusion namely is they did not understand the true meaning of greatness. As with them, as with many of us, we fail to understand what it means to really be great. We think about the next fad, we think about, having all of this prominence, all of this name recognition, but is that really being great, or have you been bewildered? They were confused about what it meant to be great, and so Jesus sets it straight. He says, you're asking for the seat, but you cannot sit in the seat without drinking of the cup. Are you able to drink of the cup that I drink of? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism that I'm baptized with? He uses imagery to talk about suffering and literally the judgment of God, the wrath of God. To suffer. Are you willing to serve? In the Garden of Gethsemane, the cup was so bitter, he said, let this cup pass from me, if it be possible. But Jesus was able to say, nevertheless, not my will, but thy will be done. And so he drinks all of it, all of the suffering, all of the humiliation, all of the pain, all of the anguish, all of the betrayal, everything that it took for him to work out redemption. And he tells them, you will indeed drink of the cup and be baptized with the baptism. And they did. James was the first apostle to be martyred. And then John would be the last apostle to be martyred. He would be exiled to Patmos, imprisoned literally at Patmos, and then Christian history says he would be executed. And so they had the illusion, and then they had the confusion on what true greatness is. They were in line, but they didn't understand. And they wanted to box Peter out. They were already in the trifecta. They were already in the inner circle. It was Peter, James, and John on the Mount of Transfiguration. They would literally see Christ be transformed. wasn't enough.
Yes, sir.
When you get into the kingdom, grant that one sits on your right and one sits on your left. To which he says, that's in the Father's hand. Whoever it's prepared for, that you will get those seats of prominence. And then the 10. And when they hear it, there is great indignation. They're huffed. They're upset at James and John. I don't think it was so much at the request that they made, as much as it was they beat them to the punch. They got the inside scoop. They were using their kinfolk relationship to try to get them some seats of prominence. And so now the 10 chime in, and they come in with great indignation about these fellows wanting to sit on the right and on the left. And then Jesus uses that as an opportunity to raise the trademark of true greatness. That's the final thought, the trademark of true greatness.
That's it.
And then he tells them, long story short, if you want to be great, be a servant.
Thirdly.
I wish I would help you preach.
Yeah.
If you want to make it to the top, stoop low.
Yeah.
In other words, you ought to at least have hen sense. The hen in the yard knows that if you want to climb over the fence, if you want to fly over the fence, a high jump comes from a low stoop. So if you stoop low, it's kind of like that preacher. He was preaching one Sunday and he got up beside himself and he didn't do so well. So he went down with his head bowed down, and the old pastor told him, say, son, if you'd went up like you came down, you could have come down like you went up. Y'all missed that.
I got it.
It's better to let God exalt you rather than exalting yourself. Just humble and be lowly and let God exalt you. He says, if you want to be great, be a diakonos. Be a servant.
Yeah.
We get our word deacon. If you want to really be great in the kingdom, serve. And the idea of that servant is literally kick up some dust. So what he's literally saying is just do some stuff. If you want folk to take note of what you're doing, do. You don't have to do a whole lot of talking. You don't have to have light shining on you. Get busy doing what you need to do. And when you do, your gift will make room for it. When you do, people will take notice of what you do. And even if they don't, the one who needs to will. He says, if you want to be great, be a servant. And then if you want to be first, he said, even worse than that, don't just be a servant, be a slave, be a doulos, a bond servant. And that's what the Apostle Paul called himself. He says, I'm a slave of the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm so much in debt that I'm just paying on the debt. In fact, my debt is so deep that I haven't even got to the principal. I'm still paying on the interest. All I'm trying to tell you is I owe God so much that the only thing I can do is serve Him. But the good news is that when you serve, serving Him will pay off. So instead of living a life of illusion, and rather than enduring the state of confusion, why don't you occupy your mind with the true meaning of greatness? And the good news is you don't have to look far to know what it looks like. You don't have to look far to have an example of what it looks like. The same one who did it told us right here. He said the Son of Man came not to be served, but He came to serve and to give His life as a ransom for me. If you want an example of what greatness is, look at Jesus. He came all the way from heaven down. If you want an example, look at Jesus. He gave up all of His rights and glory. He who was eternal, He who was omnipresent, trapped Himself in time and space, put on the form of a servant, and became obedient unto death. went through the kenosis. He came down from his godlike state and became a human being so that we could have a right to the tree of life. He gave up angels crying holy. He gave up all the glories and riches of heaven in order to come down and deal with creatures like you and I. But he did it because he was looking unto the Father. He understood that serving the Lord would pay off. He understood that if for Christ you live and tell the glad story, when you go on the last mile of the way, he says serving the Lord will pay off. And so he went all the way to Calvary. And he hung, bled, and died on Calvary. And I got good news that he became a servant unto men. He gave his life as a slave for us. He died on the cross. He died between two thieves. He died that we might live. He gave his blood to give us a blood transfusion. I'm glad this morning that Jesus is great because God has highly exalted him. He gave himself and came all the way down, and God has highly exalted him and given him a name that's above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow. At the name of Jesus, every tongue should confess that he is Lord of all. I'm glad that Jesus did